Alright, so today we're going to look at proving lines parallel. Um, yeah, that's it. We're going to use angles to prove lines parallel. I don't know what I was going to say next. Alright, so proving lines parallel, we know one of the following things that will allow us to prove that they're parallel. And so this is from the angle pairs that we learned last time. So with information, when we learned about the angle pairs and used like the things like alternate interior angles are congruent, or corresponding angles are congruent, or same side interior angles are supplementary, those were all true only when lines are parallel. This is sort of like that, just in the opposite direction. So we're saying we have two lines, so you just have two lines wherever, and then we have a transversal, and we're saying if we can prove this one parallel or congruent to that one, then the two lines are parallel. So we have alternate interior or exterior angles are congruent. That'll prove lines parallel. Corresponding angles being congruent, that'll prove two lines parallel. And consecutive interior, so same side. Okay, same side. Interior or same side exterior angles are supplementary. If any of those things are true, then we can say the lines are parallel. Not enough info. If we only know like that two vertical angles are congruent, that's not enough to prove lines are parallel. These won't work, okay? These won't work, okay? The sum of the measures of two angles forming a linear pair is 180. That doesn't prove anything about lines being parallel. Two angles sharing no common ray are congruent. That doesn't tell us anything about lines being parallel. So don't fall for these. These are the ones that don't help you. They aren't enough information. So let's take a look here. Which two lines, if any, must be parallel if 7 is congruent to 14? So if we had 7 congruent to 14. Now the easiest way to do these kind of problems is if you highlight the lines that are involved. Okay, so the lines that are involved in making angle 7 are those two. And then the lines that are involved in making 14, we already have one of them, and here's the other one. So now I can look at, I have these two lines cut by this transversal, and I have this angle congruent to this angle, and that tells me that D is parallel to C because alternate interior angles are congruent. Okay? And that's just the easiest way to do it. So I would just do that each time. And I'm going to erase mine, so either erase yours or give yourself a new kind of setup. What about if 5 and 12 are supplementary? So 5 right here and 12, if these two are supplementary. Now I'm just going to give them values. These values are just made up. They aren't real, okay? But I want them to add up to 180 so I can see them. And again, I'm going to do the same thing. Angle 5 is made with those two. Angle 12 is made with those two. And now look what I have. I have two lines cut by a transversal and the same side interior supplementary. So I know that C is parallel to B because same side interior are supplementary. Okay? Same thing each time. Same thing. Erase. Let's see what we got. If 8 is congruent to 11. Well, 8 and 11 are vertical angles. I recognize that right away. The only lines involved in making 8 and 11 are this one and this one. Those two lines intersect. They certainly aren't parallel. So, none. And it's because we don't have enough info. And then what if we had 4 congruent to 7? So 4 congruent to 7. Well, the problem here is that 4 is created with those two. 7 is created with these two. There's no relationship. Hey, look, hashtag. There's no relationship between two lines here. Those are just two angles that just happen to be congruent. So again, that's nothing can be proved with that. We don't have enough information. Okay? Let's make that look nicer. Boom. Same for you. All right. Determine the value of x for which r is parallel to s. Then find the measure of each labeled angle. Okay? So here we're saying, what would x have to be for these two angles to be congruent? All right, so let's say that these two, and again, remember we did our checkerboard thing, so you could do that again and see, are they going to be equal or supplementary? And we get 42 and 2x plus 6. Those are alternate exteriors. So x would have, these would have to be equal. So that's what I do. 2x plus 6 equals 42. I subtract 6 from each side. I get 2x equals 36. X equals 18. So if those two lines are parallel, x would have to be 18, and then the labeled angle would have to be 42. These both would have to be 42, and that one already is 42, so no problem. What about part B? For R and S to be parallel, we need, this is 140, right? So which makes this 40. So we need, this line right here is just here to distract you. Let's pay no attention. You don't exist. We need this angle and this angle to be the same. Or you could say if we need, these are same side exteriors, okay? Same side exterior are supplementary. We just could say that we need 5x minus 5 plus 140 to equal 180, okay? So I have 5x minus 5, or sorry, plus 135 equals 180. And then I have 5x equals 45. And then I have x equals 9. And again, this angle here would have to be 40. Let's take a look at this one. These are same side interior, so if those lines are parallel, same sides, both same sides, so S, S, and then supplementary is an S. That's another way to remember. 2x plus 20 equals 180. Combine like terms, and I have 8x plus 44 equals 180. I'll subtract 44 from both sides, so I have 8x equals 136, and I divide both sides by 8, and so that equals, let's see, 8 goes into 13 once, 56 left over, that's 17. All right, and then each one of these angles, this is 2 times 17 is 34, plus 20 is 54, so that one would have to be 54, and this one would have to be 126. All right. Corresponding angles postulate. If two lines are parallel, then the corresponding angles are congruent. So if L is congruent to M, then 1 and 3, 6 and 8, 2 and 4, 5 and 7, all those have to be true. It works the same in the other direction. If I tell you 5 is congruent to 7, then you could say, well, then L is parallel to M. Same here with the alternate interior angles. We already said this, if the lines are parallel, then we know that alternate interior angles congruent. And what we're saying now is that the opposite is true. If we tell you ahead of time, the converse is true. Remember the logic unit? If we tell you these two angles are congruent, then you can say, well, then L is parallel to M. And the same can be said for same side interior angles, that if we tell you that 2 and 3 are supplementary, then you can say the two lines are parallel. If you need to pause the video, you should be pausing. Same for alternate exterior and its converse. That also works. Same for same side exterior. The converse of that is true. So, let's do a proof. Yay, proof. All right, so we're going to start with L is parallel to M. That was the given. All right, L is 2 is congruent to 6. We know that 2 is congruent to 6 because of which postulate or theorem? What tells us that 2 is congruent to 6? Anybody? What do they look like? Okay, and we're talking about 2 and 6. Those are on opposite sides of the transversal, and they're on the outside, so that would be alternate exterior angles. Then we know that 4 is congruent to 2. Well, 4 and 2 are these two angles here. Hopefully you just thought to yourself, those are vertical angles, because if you did, you were right. And then if 2 is congruent to 6 and 4 is congruent to 2, then 4 is congruent to 6 by substitution. And that's it. A little proof job there for you. More proving of things. All right, so 1 is congruent to 3. Let's start here. So this is just to show you the given doesn't always have to go first, guys. 1 is congruent to 3. We know that because those are vertical angles. All right. Then G is parallel to H, and I is parallel to J. That's the given. 3 is congruent to 11. Well, if G and H are parallel, 3 is congruent to 11 because they are corresponding angles. Same location, different intersection. Corresponding angles. Okay. Then 11 and 16 are supplementary. 11 and 16, same side of the transversal and on the inside of 2 lines, so that is same side interior. I'm going to go ahead and abbreviate it at that time. And then 1 and 16 are supplementary. So 1 and 16 are supplementary. How do we know that? How do we know that 1 and 16 are supplementary? Well, look at what we have. 1 is congruent to 3. 3 is congruent to 11. 11 is congruent to 16, so then we're going to go back all the way back to 11, and 16 are supplementary based on substitution. Yikes. No problem, okay? The more of these we do, the better we get. Go ahead and pause the video right here. Try and get this one on your own. Pause the video. Pause. All right, you're back from being paused. Hopefully you got the following. The first one is obviously a given. Okay. Then we have 6 is congruent to 7. We know 6 and 7 are congruent because they are vertical angles. We know 4 is congruent to 7 because of what? 4 is to 6, 6 to 7. That looks like substitution, and you probably get credit for substitution. I think the better answer here is transitive. That's the transitive property. Remember, like if A is B and B is C, then A is C. That's when the middle one we can get. It looks like the law of syllogism. And then L is congruent to M. Well, if 4 is congruent to 7, that would be corresponding angles or converse of corresponding angles. On a test or quiz, if you just wrote corresponding angles, I'm going to give you credit for it. But technically, that's the converse of the corresponding angles. If those two angles are congruent, then the lines are parallel. Determine which lines are parallel. So remember, the way I suggested to do this was draw the lines that are involved in the intersection. Go ahead and pause this one and see if you can get some answers, and then come back and we'll check them. Pause the video now. All right, you've unpaused. Let's take a look at which lines we have involved in these intersections. So right here, to make this one, we have that, and to make this one, we have that. So the lines that are parallel. See, when you do that, these questions get really easy. Line is D is parallel to line E. Here we have these two are involved in that intersection, and these two. So again, real easy if you just highlight the lines that are involved. That's it for the notes, guys. See you next time. Bye.